Lieutenant Governor will open.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, we are very proud to have you come and join us today. We have some very powerful announcements on behalf of the governor. And just over a month ago, Governor Cuomo enacted the 2012-2013 budget, which created the New York Works program and task force. This is an unprecedented investment in New York State's economy and will create thousands of jobs and also focus on the state's infrastructure. New York Works Task Force is also about rethinking the way the state invests its capital monies. It is transforming the way these investments are made, and today Governor Cuomo will be announcing the board and his appointments. Governor also has some very exciting news about the regional councils and the investments coming up in the next round. These councils have really been transformative around the state. I've had a chance to bear witness going to all the regions, and the change is palpable. It is like the big ship turning around. It is exciting to be a part and see, and the governor has announcements relative to the next round of those. And to summarize this before we turn over to our other speakers, New York is poised for a big comeback. This is the Empire State. We've had some huge challenges, but under this governor's leadership, the state is changing. It's changing the way we do business, the way we invest, the way we create jobs, and the way we engage the communities around the state. So it is exciting. In a few moments, you're going to hear from Senator Betty Little to my left, and also Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, and then Governor Cuomo, and Governor Cuomo will then go around the table. What I'd like to do is announce some of the board members who are not here today. And first of all, from the governor's appointments, Mayor Byron Brown, Mayor of Buffalo, Michael Fishman, the President, SEIU Local 32BJ, Peter Goldmark, Program Director for Climate and Air, Environmental Defense Fund. From the Assembly Majority appointments, both Assemblyman Herman Farrell, Chairman of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, and Majority Leader Ron Canestrari could not attend this morning's announcement. At the end of the program, Dennis Hughes and Felix Roden, our two co-chairs, will conclude our program, and then the governor and the board will take questions. So it gives me great pleasure to turn over to Senator Betty Little.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. It's really a pleasure to be here and to represent my colleagues in the Senate for the announcement of the New York Works Task Force and to launch the second round of the Regional Economic Development Councils. The Senate wholeheartedly agrees with the governor's view that we have to reform the way the state allocates its capital resources. It makes little sense to have 45 state agencies developing 45 different plans, capital plans, without even talking to each other. We will work with the New York Works Task Force to make sure that the state's infrastructure needs are met and that taxpayer dollars are wisely spent. I'm especially excited about the launching of the second round of the Regional Economic Development Councils, and I'm proud to say that the North Country Economic Regional Development Council was one of 4 regions awarded Best Strategic Plan and won $103.2 million. And I can't begin to tell you how much that means to the people that I represent and the entire North Country as they move forward with these projects. Now, they're working on implementing one vision for the whole entire North Country. These councils transformed the way we approach economic development. They brought academics, business owners, labor and community leaders to the table in order to develop a bottom-up regional economic strategy that capitalized on the region's resources and addressed their most serious concerns. These 2 initiatives will greatly contribute to the governor's continued efforts to improve New York's business climate, stimulate economic growth, invest in locally significant projects, and generate more jobs for New Yorkers. I thank him for his dedication and leadership, and it is now my true pleasure to introduce Speaker Sheldon Silver. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Once again, I'd like to commend Governor Cuomo for establishing this New York Works initiative. The state of New York should have a coordinated, streamlined, and prioritized plan for building and rebuilding our infrastructure. Bridges, highways, dams, parks, and other such projects are the backbone of our economy and an important source of well-paid jobs, which is priority number 1. This task force will have an important job to do, and I am delighted that its membership will include my colleagues, Assembly Member Herman Denny Farrell and Assemblymember Ron Canestrari. Both men are exceptional public leaders. Assemblyman Farrell brings more than 3 decades of government experience to the task force. As chairman of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, he understands the complexities of New York's economy as well as anyone in the Capitol. In addition, his more than 2 decades of state service, Assemblyman Ron Canestrari had an extensive local government experience which he brings to the task force. I am confident that both representatives will be key contributors to this task force. We look forward to the recommendations of the New York Works Task Force and to the positive economic impact of this wonderful initiative. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. First, I want to thank the Speaker for being here today and for his good words and for making today a reality. Senator Betty Little and my colleagues from the Senate, thank you very much for your participation in this and for also making this legislation a reality. And our new members of the New York Works Task Force, congratulations and thank you for your time. And we're excited about what this is going to do for the state of New York. We were chatting inside earlier, and I said that much of what we've been doing, my colleagues in state government, has been planning and in preparation and passing legislation that will facilitate, that will create, and much of it was anticipatory. But today, you're going to see the rubber actually hit the road or the shovel hit the dirt, whatever metaphor you want to use. But this is now our concept actually becoming a reality and actualizing the government policies we've been talking about for many, many months. A focus for the past 16 months has been turning the economy around in this state and creating jobs for New Yorkers. We have a 2-part strategy that works on 2 levels. First, we talk about reducing the barriers, and we focus on getting the tax situation in the state of New York under control, which I believe we have done. We have the lowest middle-class tax rate in 58 years, property tax cap, pension reform. We've made dramatic progress on stopping the growth of taxes in the state of New York, and we call that the New York Open for Business strategy, and that's been working very well. Second strategy is how does government actually partner in an active sense with business to create jobs? And we call that entrepreneurial government. It doesn't have to be an oxymoron, entrepreneurial government. How do you develop the next generation of public-private sector partnerships and actually use government to partner in the creation of jobs? How does government help business? How does government facilitate business? How does it leverage private sector capital? And that's the plan that we laid out in this budget, approximately $20 billion of total activity leveraged by only $1 billion in state money. And for many years, government was an impediment to private sector growth. How do you flip that and actually make government an active partner? And that's the Energy Superhighway project, Roads and Bridges project, Tappan Zee project that we've been talking about. This board is the heart of the statewide implementation of that concept. This board is all about 2 things. One, how do you reach out and partner with the private sector in a way that has never been done before? How do you creatively finance? How do you leverage? How do you partner with private sector entities? And second, how do you coordinate what the state is already doing? As Senator Little mentioned, the current situation is wasteful and bizarre. This silo form of organization of government where every government agency operates as if it was the only government agency within the state. Multiple government agencies all doing their own long-term capital plans without even talking to each other. MTA does its plan without talking to the Port Authority, without talking to DOT. It makes no sense. Regional Planning Association, Long Island Planning Association, planners, developers for decades. We'll talk about comprehensive approaches, bottom-up approaches, and coordinated approaches, so you get everybody on the same page. Taxpayers, we no longer have the luxury of wasting tax dollars. Every dollar is precious. How do we make sure we're operating as smartly and as effectively as possible? And that's the charge for the New York Works Board. We're also announcing today what is the second level of our strategy. And while New York Works is a statewide strategy, New York Open for Business is a statewide strategy, we also recognize that economies are generated from the bottom up, from regions up, from localities up. And that's the regional council approach that the Lieutenant Governor has spearheaded, which has worked extraordinarily well. Bringing people together in the local community to figure out what is the best long-term economic plan for Western New York, for Long Island, for the North Country, and they may all be a little different. We have to set the stage with the statewide efforts, but then a lot of the energy and the ideas are going to come from that local community that is incentivized with a public-private sector partnership. And that has been working. As the Lieutenant Governor said, we have a lot of damage to undo. And this state did a lot of damage to itself, I believe, over the past years. But we've turned the corner. I truly believe that. And this New York Works Task Force, I think, is really going to bring it to a new level. And given the experience and the qualifications of the people on this task force, I think it's going to work. This represents the partnership and the parties that literally need to be at the table if we're going to do this. First, on the government side, I thank the Speaker and Senator Little on behalf of the Senate for their partnership and the partnership that we have developed over the past 16 months. It is a partnership that is working for the people of the state, and that's what this state government is supposed to be doing. And we have done that for the past 16 months, and I thank them for their collegiality and their assistance and their partnership. And then I thank our private sector partners who have come to the table today, and they're giving of their time so that this state may be a better state. And I thank them all. With that, let me turn it over to the two co-chairs of this committee who bring more knowledge on finance and labor in the state of New York than I think any other two people could possibly bring. And let me turn it first to Ambassador Felix Roden.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to partner with you and to undertake something which is hugely exciting, very difficult, probably the most difficult thing in a democratic society is how do you allocate resources and manage. So you have one structure which is a management structure which has to be dealt with. It's a very difficult thing because you're treading on people's toes, and it requires enormous time and a management structure that is self-creating. Second thing is, how do you finance? It's a question of how much do you need? How much do your people need? How do you allocate those financing requirements within the structure of this? And that is, that's difficult, especially when capital is not in excess these days. But it can't be avoided, because without it, you have nothing. So as I said, I am delighted to be working with you gentlemen. But I want to just give you a little example of what happens when management is not with you. When I was ambassador to France, and one of the things that I was desperately trying to do was to get rid of a building which was full of people and wasn't really doing something that we couldn't be doing here. And the man who was running this operation, which was probably at market worth 70, 80, 90 million dollars and was on our books for $5. I said to him, I just want to tell you that at the end of the year, we're going home. And my recommendation is to sell the building and move this operation to somewhere in the center of this country. And the man came to see me and I said, Governor, he said, Ambassador, I just thought I'd tell you that in 10 years that building will still be here and you won't. Now, it almost happened, but I do think that that building is still there. And when so that is just my short story. It's really uphill when you're dealing with these bureaucracies in terms of management, in terms of financing capability. And I'm delighted to be here and to try to do the best I can.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador, and your words are very wise, and I second your notion that the bureaucracy can be difficult to move, and there is a sense that the institution will outlast the individual. I'm slightly accustomed to that from the past 16 months. I like to think that there's a different energy that we have going right now in this state. I understand the inertia and the opposition, but we've been able to make some changes. And I think we're at a point now where people really are cooperative and are can-do, and they understand that we have to make changes if this state is going to succeed. And just maintaining the status quo really is not an option. So I agree, it's not easy, and that's why we had to get the best minds in the business assembled to do this. With that, talking about the best minds in the business, Mr. Dennis Hughes. Thank you very much, Dennis, for all you've done for this state in your previous capacity as head of the AFL-CIO and in your current capacity now as a labor and finance expert. Thank you for doing this.
Governor, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this or co-chair this task force. You know, the governor and his team have laid out an ambitious plan to get New York back on its feet, and I'm really proud to be part of it. I'm also proud to be working with the men and women on this committee. I look around and I see people that have expertise in areas that very rarely get together and work together as a team. You know, this is the type of initiative that working men and women in this state, particularly union men and women in this state, but working men and women in this state have been waiting for. A concrete, well thought out plan for economic development, and it really is in a major way an opportunity to do the things that we've done years ago in Washington, but today are impossible to do in Washington because of the political gridlock. So I commend the governor for actually putting this in place. I commend you, Governor, for taking the time to do it and to take the risk to do it. As Felix said, this is not an easy task, but it can be done. It has to be done. And I think it has the support, I know it has the support of all New Yorkers, no matter what your economic strata is, because in the end, if we're going to make any changes, we're going to do it ourselves. And on another note, New York has resources, financial resources, and other things that make it unique from any other state in the Union. We have always been the state that did things first, did things well, and solved our own problems. So again, I want to commend the governor for doing this. Thank the governor for allowing me to be part of it as a co-chair. And just as a personal note, Felix, I just want to say it's really a pleasure for me to work with you on this. I don't think there's anyone that has been through these things as many times as Felix and knows more about all avenues here as he does. So I'm really honored to do this. And again, I want to commend the governor because you know, he's not waiting for Washington. He's not waiting for anybody else. You're doing it yourself. And that's a tremendous thing. So onward and upward, and we will get this done.
Thank you. Well said, Dennis. And I thought on referring to Ambassador Road, and since he helped save the city, I thought it was only fair that he helped save the state, right? Let's go around the table, if we might, so you meet all the people who are involved, who are on the task force or involved in running the task force. Why don't we start with you, Madam Mayor, Mayor Stephanie Miner. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Governor Cuomo. My name is Stephanie Miner. I am the mayor of the city of Syracuse. It's really an honor and a privilege to have been asked to participate in this group. As any mayor will tell you, the foundation of economic development and jobs is a good infrastructure. And we have an infrastructure that is aging and declining. And if we truly want to maximize jobs and opportunities for New Yorkers, we need to focus on those foundations. And I'm really just honored to have been asked to participate in doing that in a sustainable and thoughtful way. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Bob?
Well, thank you, Governor. Equally honored. I'm Bob Yarrow. I'm president of Regional Plan Association, and I also teach capital planning and infrastructure planning at the University of Pennsylvania. So this is kind of a nice opportunity for me to take the stuff that I teach in the classroom and the stuff that I do in my daily work at Regional Plan in the downstate region, and to work with this extraordinary, talented group of people that you've put together on something that is just very long overdue here in New York State. I was thinking about it, and I think you've got to go back to Al Smith's administration to find a time when the state was thinking this way about its future. And they laid out a statewide plan that created the concept of the Thruway Authority, the Power Authority, the Power Grid, the things that powered the growth of the Empire State through most of the 20th century. And it's just time to do it again. So there just couldn't be better time, and it couldn't be, and I agree with the Governor. I just think the change in the temperament in the state, just the progress that you've made in the last 16 months sets the stage for some very creative thinking and hopefully some actions coming out of this.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you, Bob. Carol?
I'm Carol Kellerman, the president of the Citizens Budget Commission, which does research and advocacy to assure that taxpayer dollars are wisely spent in New York State. And we have long advocated for the two underlying principles that this task force is intended to address: a more coordinated capital planning process in New York State, and thoughtful and effective use of public-private partnerships to fund infrastructure, which is something that New York State lags on in terms of things that are going on in other parts of the world and the country. And so I'm very pleased to participate in seeing those two principles implemented in New York. And I also have to say that regardless of what the topic of the task force would be, it would be very hard to resist the opportunity to participate in something co-chaired by Felix Rowan and Dennis Hughes. I'm sure they're going to be fantastic leaders, and it's going to be a pleasure to work with them.
Here, here. Gary?
Thank you, Governor. My name is Gary LaBarbera. I am the president of the New York City Building and Construction Trades Council, representing 15 international unions and 100,000 men and women in the building trades industry. First and foremost, let me also thank Governor Cuomo for giving me the opportunity to serve on this task force. It's a great honor for me to do so. Clearly, the missions and objectives of this task force have been stated, and I certainly couldn't agree more with all that's been stated today. But one anecdotal comment I have to make is to the governor is I've known the governor for a number of years, and in many years in my roles as the president of Central Labor Council and the president of the Building Trades Council, we've had many discussions about what makes New York State the greatest state. And the governor's always understood that economic development and job creation was the key component, something that we firmly believe in. And I'm just so proud of this governor for having the courage and the vision to put together this task force and this initiative to accomplish two very important things. One is to address the dire infrastructure needs in the city and in the state, and in doing so, creating good jobs, good paying jobs, which will lead to further economic development for the whole state of New York. So Governor, I'm just so proud of you and of your vision, and I think that this is going to be a major success for the state of New York and for all the people that reside in the state. So thank you very much for your commitment to the state.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. John?
Governor, John Cameron. I'm the founder and managing partner of Cameron Engineering and Associates. I have an extensive career in infrastructure, in various facets of infrastructure investment, in energy, transportation, environmental projects both on the public and private sector. And I've been involved in project financing throughout my career. And I also serve as the chairman of Long Island Regional Planning Council. We recently completed LI 2035, which is a 25-year sustainability plan, which focused in on 4 thematic areas, being tax and governance, environment and infrastructure, economic development, and equity. And I believe all those various facets are critical towards us developing a sustainable plan here for New York State. And the opportunity that we now have presented before us today to hopefully move forward and enable New York to be a leader when it comes to the nation on leveraging both public and private financing in order that we can create jobs, stimulate the economy, and continue to provide a sustainable economy for the state and for retaining jobs here in the state, and as well as to enable us to grow.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Mr. Mexico, who among many other roles is also Secretary to the Senate Finance Committee. Thank you for taking yet another role to serve on this task force, sir.
Thank you, Governor. Creating jobs, controlling spending, and rebuilding the state's infrastructure has been the top priorities of the state Senate. I'm Secretary to the Senate Finance Committee, and being with the Finance Committee for 15 years, I can say this is the first time we've negotiated many capital plans, many different times, and this is the first time we've pulled them all together and in a comprehensive plan where we'll pull the authorities and the agencies together and do it in a coordinated fashion. So I look forward to working with the distinguished members of this task force, with the executives team, to put together a comprehensive plan, accelerate capital projects, fund them that will stimulate economic growth, improve New York's business climate, and create jobs for New Yorkers. So I commend the governor for his leadership in moving this initiative forward, and thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Gordon Glazer, Director of State Operations, here with my colleagues to help staff this effort for you. I have the state agencies and authorities that are the silos that have been operating in isolation from each other.
The former silos.
Which is
now think horizontal thing.
the problem that you're trying to solve for, and we're committed to assisting you every step of the way.
Thank you. I'm Margaret Tobin, the Executive Director of New York Works, and I'd like to really thank the Governor and Howard for inviting me to do this. I will say that I'm very excited and daunted by the opportunity ahead of us, and I know that we'll be able to work together to make the great state of New York work. It is a great state. I have a long experience on both the private sector side and public sector, economic development, finance, real estate development, and when it comes to boots on the ground, we're going to dig in and really make things happen so that Al Smith's legacy will certainly be outshone by this group of leaders of the state. So thank you very much, Governor.
Thank you, Margaret. Mr. Megna?
Thank you, Governor. I'm Bob Megna. I'm the Budget Director, and there's no one happier than me to get to work with this great group of people. I think a few of the members have talked about our constraints in terms of the resources we have to spend, so I think it's wonderful that we have this group that will help us allocate those precious resources in a way to really help the economy of the state.
He gets very happy when it's saving money time. Thank you all very much. At this point, any questions from the press?
Governor, quick look at the list. I didn't see in terms of initial bidding in New York City projects. I'm curious if there's food coordination with New York City projects, and how does that work with the Port Authority being a bi-state agency?
Well, the Port Authority is a bi-state agency. Part of the projects are in New Jersey, obviously, and part of it in New York. We'll just be focusing on the projects that are in New York. You could have a different conversation that Bob Yarrow would have with you at one point about the coordination among states also. This effort is coordinating within New York State. True regional plans would be talking about coordination among states also. But that's a different topic for a different day. So this will focus on the Port Authority portfolio primarily within the state. Port Authority, MTA, DOT, primarily coordination among the state agencies.
Governor, you mentioned the Tappan Bridge earlier. Last week, the state did win in the first round of funding for the Tappan Bridge, $2 billion loan. Was that disappointing to not get that? And also,
You know, Joe, we believe the Federal Department of Transportation is going to have reauthorized legislation and reauthorized authority, and we believe that we are going to be competitive once that reauthorization occurs. There is a cycle of debate around the reauthorization of the federal transportation funds, much like there is a cycle of the legislature in Albany. But I believe the funds will be reauthorized, and I believe we're competitive. As far as any other updates, Howard, anything new on the Tappan Zee financing?
We will have some additional announcements coming up, I think, in the next few weeks. The environmental statement of record is being worked on in an expedited manner with the federal government and the state government right now. We're on target to have that completed at the end of the summer. We're doing many things simultaneously: the environmental review, developing financial plans, working out labor agreements. So you'll continue to see that work being done over the next few months.
So you're going to be looking for a public-private partnership legislation? I know something that you looked at in the past, and you need legislation to move forward with.
We passed a piece of design-build legislation with my colleagues in the Senate and the Assembly. We're talking about public-private sector partnership legislation. We don't have an immediate proposal on that. On the Tappan Zee Bridge, for the benefit of the task force, the ambassador was referring to inertia and institutional opposition, just bureaucratic opposition, opposition of the system, opposition to change, opposition to risk, which is very real and one of the main challenges you're going to face. The Tappan Zee Bridge is a project that has been talked about for decades, literally. Tappan Zee Bridge, and there's a project called the Peace Bridge in Buffalo. Large-scale public works projects that have been talked about for decades but have somehow defied progress, let alone completion. And that, Ambassador, is another one of those cultural enemies, I think, to progress. This sense that, big projects are just too difficult for us to tackle. Building a bridge, it's controversial, it's complex, there's going to be opposition, and if there's opposition, then we should stop. We're trying to do the exact opposite with the Tappan Zee. We're trying to say when there is a need and a pressing need, government should be able to respond quickly, expeditiously, efficiently, hear everyone, fair process, due process, but then get it done. Get it done. Government was about functioning. Al Smith. Government was about functioning and performing competently, quickly. So the Tappan Zee Bridge, which you'll be involved in, is a project that we identified early on that is not just going to be about repairing that bridge, but it's going to be about making the statement that government can work and society can work and we can still do big things. We're that good. So the keeping the Tappan Zee on time and moving along is very important to us.
Governor, how do you pay for the Tappan Zee Bridge? That seems to be the biggest roadblock at this point. How to pay for it?
We're working through a number of financing options, and we'll present a number of options, and we'll present them for discussion, and then we'll pick the best one.
Governor, are you going to have legislation during this session that would say you would have public and private money or any other way of raising money for the Tappan Zee Bridge? Would it have to go through legislation?
It would not have to go through legislation, no. Well, let's just stay on anything else on this?
Governor, does this task force come with any hard deadlines for recommendations or report, or is it more of a rolling project?
It is a rolling process. The first order of business is going to be getting their hands around the number of current capital project planning mechanisms that are going on in the state, and identifying what needs to be coordinated and brought together under the task force. But many of these capital budgets and plans come up all throughout the year, so it will basically be a rolling basis.
Governor, 3 times today people have mentioned Al Smith. You've been talking about his re-mission of government, his ability to get public works done. One of his right-hand men
The Al Smith, I thought someone was going to ask. Al Smith's portrait hung in this building, in this room, until very recently. You have Al Smith in your office.
My predecessor, speaker,
That's right.
and this one.
That's right. He is now, his portrait was put in the hallway when we redid the hallway. But the point of Al Smith and his ability to manage the government, just on this point, I thought was profound, especially coming in the door, because in many ways that's enemy number one, is the mismanagement, the atrophy of state government. That has been years in the making. And by the way, it's not going to be changed, overnight. But that's what Al Smith was all about. Also starting to rebuild the public trust. People trusted Al Smith. They trusted the government's capacity and the government's integrity. So all of that. There are ways for government to get things done without using a ramrod, obviously. Your characterization that Mr. Moses used a ramrod. Other people would disagree with that characterization, but it was yours. My point is government can function efficiently and effectively. I said with due process, with an open process, with consultation. But the consultation and the process shouldn't be paralyzing. Government needs to work. Society needs to be able to replace a bridge. Talk about it, discuss it, analyze it, argue it, look at different styles, look at different financing options, but ultimately you have to decide if you're going to get anything done. And that is the competence of the process, and that has suffered. Excuse me one second, Karen. Anyone want to make any other comments on any of these topics? Colleagues from the Senate? Colleagues from the Assembly? Al Smith comments? No? Betty?
Yeah, I would just like to say that on behalf of the senators, my colleagues and all, I really feel that you have made a difference, and this administration has done a great job in turning New York around. And I hear that when I'm out in the public, whether I'm at the grocery store or after church or just on the street. People think that New York is moving in the right direction. And we are improving infrastructure, and we are creating jobs. I think this year's budget had jobs throughout the entire budget. And I'm very proud, actually, to be here today representing Senator Skelos. But I'm also proud to be a member of the Senate because working with the Assembly and the governor, I think for the first time in my 17-year career here, we are actually working together and governing. And I just want to thank you, Governor, for your leadership for that, and the Speaker as well.
Thank you, Senator. Here.
Can I just follow up on that question on your reports? How can the public scrutiny of billions of dollars of products by public servants, how can that be paralyzing? And it's repeating the question, will there be discussions that are open to the public before those decisions are made?
Yeah, yes. My point is this. Can you analyze expenditures and still get something done, in your opinion?
Isn't that the role of government?
Yes, that's my point. So yes, analyze, look, discuss, research, debate, but you also need to function. And the process can't become paralyzing, because if all you do is talk and discuss and you never conclude, then nothing happens.
But how does the public review of those discussions of that work, how does that paralyze the process?
No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. You can do that. Have the discussion, debate, analyze, review, but also at one point decide, conclude, and act.
So will discussions be public?
Whatever the law is, I don't know what is the applicable law. We have an open meetings law, and that law will be followed.
I don't believe it would apply to this advisory decision. Will you follow it anyway?
I don't know, Jimmy, if the law applies or not to this task force.
So if the law doesn't apply, which it probably doesn't since it's a commission forming a final product, if it's not subject to open meetings, you wouldn't want them to go into open meetings or to be more public, to go in the spirit of the open meetings.
Well, I think it's something the task force should consider and look at.
Governor, will the task force actually make decisions in
Well, these are all state agencies that they are dealing with, agencies or authorities. So they are all under the jurisdiction of the executive. And everyone, we've talked to the agencies that will be and authorities that will be part of this effort, and everybody is cooperative.
The Catholic bishops calling for an increase in the minimum wage. Does that make it any more likely that it could happen, or does sway opinions?
I think the speaker would think so.
What about the Senate leaders and the Senate GOP?
I don't know.
What do you think the chances are? Are they any better than they were last week?
When, yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday.
We're having, the conversations on the minimum wage are ongoing. As I've said before, at this point there is a philosophical difference within the legislature on the minimum wage. We're still talking about it. I wouldn't handicap it at this point, but I wouldn't be exceptionally optimistic.
What about yourself, Governor? You seemed to indicate yesterday that you thought now was a time when increasing the minimum wage possibly happened.
I've always supported I've usually supported the concept of raising the minimum wage. Yes. That's a different question, Eric, as to whether or not I think it will get done this year.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it seems, if I can repeat.
So yes and dubious are my answers.
If you're interested, I support the minimum wage increase.
Governor, your reaction to the Court of Appeals decision upholding the education plan?
You know, we said all along when I signed the bill that I would sign the bill and there would be judicial review. And then we'll find out upon the judicial review, we'll answer the theoretical questions of what was legal and what wasn't. One of the main questions was on the 63rd seat. And the Court of Appeals, I've been informed, has upheld the 63rd seat. So I think that would be the determination on that.
Governor, the Daily News this morning had a poll showing that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton should have run for president with defeat you in a presidential primary. I want to get any reaction to that.
Nope.
Governor, how do you want to respond to Speaker Espada, who made some comments, I believe it was yesterday, about you and the Soundview Health system there?
Were they favorable or unfavorable?
They were unfavorable.
Then I don't want to comment.
One more.
There's a bill that's been proposed in the State Assembly. Mr. Speaker, you can weigh in on this as well. That would give every member of the chamber the opportunity to get one bill to a floor vote. Sponsor says that this would allow discussion on issues and that maybe some bills would fail. Do you think that's a good idea?
This question for me or for the speaker?
If you could both weigh in, that'd be great.
Yeah, I haven't seen the bill, so I have no opinion at this time.
I haven't
I'd like to
seen the
look at
bill.
Governor, the property tax.
It's a good answer, by the way.
That's why you don't read it.
Governor, the property tax cap, looks like schools, 92% of schools are coming in under their property tax levy cap. What's your reaction to that? And schools are saying that, yeah, they're going to come in under the cap, but they're cutting services, cutting teachers to do it.
I think it's great. Look, you have to remember, look, the property tax cap was about creating a dialogue and engaging the public and stopping this knee-jerk, automatic, exorbitant tax increase. The tax cap goes up 2%. The state has increased aid to education 4%. So, Joe, when you talk about cutting expenses, they're getting 4% more from the state. Local taxes are going up 2%. Their increase is above the rate of inflation. So that's called economic reality. And to the extent you say, well, they're upset, they have to live within economic realities. Welcome to everybody else's world, you know. The taxpayers have to live within economic realities. Their income is going up a certain amount, you know, their expenses are going up a certain amount. So all the tax cap said was there should be a discussion and a debate, and people should be aware of the economic reality. It's not even a cap, as we've discussed. A local government, a school district can raise their taxes as much as they want. 2%, 4%, 10%, 20%, whatever you want to do. You need 60% of the vote over 2%, but there's no cap. It is just the discipline, if you will, of the dialogue, the public scrutiny of the situation. And it has worked, frankly, better than I thought it would have worked. Because it's not really a cap, right? Anyone who wanted to raise above the 2% could.
How about local governments, and you're seeing cities now come out with their budgets, they're making a lot of cuts, trying to deal with the big deficits that they're facing. I mean, anything additional that you think might be able to do to help cities, particularly upstate, that are struggling with their own budget?
Joe, they're spending more, well, I don't know, on local governments. The school districts, our increase has been 4%. Our budget also went down. But there's no doubt, Joe, look, this is a recalibration to the economic realities of today. And to the extent government has to do it and it's somewhat unpleasant, I understand that. But taxpayers have to do it also. And taxpayers are the ones who pay the taxes. So in many ways, I think government is just adjusting to an economic reality that the taxpayers have adjusted to years ago.
Governor, the majority leader yesterday indicated that he would be open to overhauling the state's campaign finance law with a bill that does not include public financing of campaigns. Do you think that, quote unquote, real reform can happen with, maybe lowering contribution rates or limits and things like that without public financing portion?
Nick, I support public financing. And to me, that's an important part of overall campaign finance. And those are the conversations that are ongoing with myself and my colleagues in the Assembly and the Senate. But I think public financing is very important.
Are there any updates on the NIRA problems?
No.
Governor, can I follow up on the school district issue? The school funding advocates are saying, long-term, they have a concern because the state budget will go up by, personal wages, the increases will be guided by that. The cap is 2%. So their argument is that down the road, over several years, you're going to be facing a situation where schools will be getting increases less than the cost of living or inflation. Does that fit into this new paradigm that they have to understand how to work?
I think that's just wrong, Mike.
How so? I'm sorry.
Bob Magna can talk you through the formula, but I don't believe that's how it works.
If personal income and increases are tied to personal income by definition has to grow greater than the rate of inflation, so that statement just can't be accurate.
Not that that might change anything, but on the off chance it might once in a while.
Any reaction to the new indictment for former Senator Rubin?
No. All right, thank you all very much and congratulations to the task force.